Our CCH Firm Focus webinars are all about sharing with you the latest in trends, tools and technology that are affecting the industry. This webinar is actually the first of 3 that we've partnered with Creative Agency Secrets to present on websites and social media. So if you haven't registered for the others, there'll be more details on these in the follow-up email. If you haven't used GoToWebinar before, you will find your control panel in the top right-hand corner of your screen. You've all been placed on mute, but you can ask questions through the questions panel. Feel free to fire these through as you think of them, and Rebecca will get to as many as time allows for at the end. If you're having problems with audio quality, there are also instructions in the control panel for dialing into your audio via the phone line, which can provide an improved quality. A link to the recording of this webinar and the slides will be sent out following today's presentation to everyone who is registered for this webinar, so you will have access to rewatch or share this with colleagues. There is also a follow-up survey after the webinar that we would appreciate your feedback on, as this will drive the future direction of the Firm Focus webinar series. While the focus of today's webinars is on learning, between CCH iFirm and Creative Agency Secrets, we do have the skills to help you with all the elements that will be discussed, from identifying and setting your digital strategy through to the design, build and maintenance of your website. Our contact details as well as some special offers will be included in the follow-up email if you would like help with anything covered today. So now I would like to hand over to Rebecca from Creative Agency Secrets, who is going to take you through your digital strategy and your website. Rebecca.
Thank you very much, Will. Good morning, everyone. Hello to the early birds in Australia. Hello to us late fellows here in New Zealand. Today, we're going to be doing a working session. So if you haven't done it yet, I'd like you to take a notepad and pen and bring them close to where you're sitting and listening or watching. And if possible, could you also get access to a web browser, because there are some things that I'm going to ask you to do later on which will be more informative if you can actually get online and look at something while I'm discussing it. Now, let's kick off and get on with the show. The first thing I want to talk about is a big picture thing. A lot of people in marketing talk about strategy and tactics. Strategy is not the same as tactics. Strategy is the process of specifying your organization's visions, your goals, the opportunities and initiatives you're going to take to get to your objective. Tactics are the techniques and tools that you use in order to get to that end goal. Most marketing that people talk about is tactics, not strategy. So just to give an example, your strategy might be, we want to be the largest accounting firm in Palmerston North, or we want to work for most of the retailers in Melbourne. The tactics will be how you're going to get there. So the vast majority of what we're going to talk about today is about tactics, little things that you can do to get your firm to where you want to go. Let's look a minute at why we think you should have a digital strategy. I've listed out here several things that are happening in the world of work today, which you've all encountered. Workplaces are being digitized. An awful lot of us store electronic documents. You might have a paper-free office. Vast majority of you, I'm sure, are using cloud computing for some of your accounts, whether it's Mile, Xero, or other applications. We all use email communication nowadays, and we're very familiar with it and comfortable using it. Clients versus prospects. By that I mean that people who already know you are probably communicating with you using electronic means, but prospects, organizations and individuals who don't yet know you, almost certainly are not, and that's a big challenge. And the other thing to think about is new ways of working. Quite a few of our clients have remote working enabled so that people can work from home part of the week if they want to, but still have access through things like Microsoft SharePoint to the full server in the office so that they can still get on with their work. All of these things are enabled through digital means, electronic means. And that's why a business needs to have a digital strategy, and that strategy is not just about marketing, it's about your entire business. Let's have a look at the marketing things that could be digital. I've put up here two lists. On the left you can see traditional marketing tools and tactics, brochures, business cards, newsletters. These are all things that most firms, I'm sure, are very familiar with and you probably use or have used in the past. On the right, I've put up a suggestion as to what a digital alternative could be. So instead of having a brochure, you might have a PDF of your brochure, or you might say, our website is our new brochure. For business cards, you might have V-cards. A lot of us are used to having those attached to emails, and we actually receive them and save them into our databases. News versus website news page, newsletters versus electronic newsletters. LinkedIn is a particularly important part of what I'll talk about later on today. And again, advertising, yellow pages and seminars. Here we are on an electronic webinar instead of a face-to-face seminar. And of course, for me, it's delightful. I'm able to access 131 of you who I can see are online now, who are all over the geographies of our area. And hopefully, I'll get to meet some of you at some point. So what does your firm want to achieve with your digital strategy? Pull your notepad and pen towards you and have a look at what I've listed out here. I'd like you to look at writing down the things that you think are relevant to your firm. Now you might have things that are different from what I've written, and if you have, pop them into the questions box so that I can see what you want to achieve, and I will try and cover that in the later part of the webinar. My suggestions start with, we want to be known, we want to be recognised and known as a firm and what our services are. The second thing I've put is get found. We want people who don't already know us to be able to find out about us. We want our skills to be recognised. We want to showcase our case study clients. Perhaps we have a geographical limitation. We're in a particular town, a particular region, and we want to draw our clients from that same region. Maybe niche expertise. You have a particular industry focus, maybe you're tax specialists. All of these are good things that you can achieve with a digital strategy. And of course, the last thing is showcasing your client list. So, have you all written down two of those things which you want to achieve for your digital strategy? Let's put them down on your notepad now. It doesn't matter if you actually want to achieve more than two, but I'd like you to focus on what you think the two most important are for your firm. Ready?
We've got a few people coming through. Lots of efficiently communicate with clients and empower clients. People want to get found geographically and to support promotional messages across all their media.
Brilliant. So, moving forward, I've taken that short list that I wrote, and of course we'll add on the ones that you have come up with, and I've put them into a grid, aligning them with different marketing tactics that are digital. So what you can see now is on the left-hand side, I've listed be known, get found, skills, and so on. And across the top, what I've done is I've listed different marketing elements that you might choose to use and where I think the two of them overlap, which is where I've put ticks in the boxes. So, for example, your website is a good place to be known and to get found. Natural search is when someone types something into a search engine, which might be a phrase, it might be names of people, it might be the name of the firm, it might be a service area, and gets results from the search engine. Paid search is advertising alongside that same search engine, and we'll cover that off a little bit later. LinkedIn is the professional's social media networking website, and I've put that for 3 different areas, showcasing your skills and case studies as well as getting found, and I'll explain why that's important later on. Trade media are obviously the accountancy magazines, the institute magazines. Newspapers or magazines are your local newspapers that are not specialist to the industry. And of course, Yellow Pages is a synonym for an awful lot of listings and directories. But here's the important thing that I want you to do now, is to take your two things and have a look at where they sit on this grid and which are the marketing tactics that might be useful. Just note those down to yourself. Now look at this. You probably saw the first line where I listed the website as being useful across all the different areas of your digital strategy. But have a look at this. Getting found is also very aligned with the marketing digital tactics. As a result, I'm going to claim that your website is your most important asset to the firm. And that's a reason why the website is the thing I'm leading on in the talk today. Now, let's look at how you might design your website. First, I'd like you to test your existing situation. So this is where I'd like you to go to your web browser. Fire it up, whatever your favorite search engine is, and I'd like you to type in the words accountant and then just name your town or your suburb. So tell me when you've got some results coming up. So what you should have displayed is now something close to a page full of results. And I want to give you some scores. We're just going to do a little tot up as to how well your firm shows up. So give yourself 1 point for every one of the search results that references your business in the first 3 pages. So at the bottom of the search engine, whether it's Google or Yahoo, it'll say page 1 and then it'll say go on to the next page. So just scroll through them, quick eyeball to the URLs, which is usually the bottom part of the search results. And tell me how many you've got. Now, I'm going to give you the chance to add more points. Add another one if your business is also on these websites. Now, 3 different sorts of websites. One is LinkedIn, and here it could be a reference to an individual in the firm, or it could be the firm itself, because LinkedIn has 2 types of page listings, one for people and one for organizations. Give yourself another point if any of those references are on local directories, and I've suggested some here, things like Yell, Finder, Localist, the White Pages, Hotfrog, Yelp, or True Local. Any of those, give yourself 1 point. And lastly, I've put Facebook down just in case any of you are particularly Facebook orientated. You might come up with some Facebook listings. And now for the bad news. I want you to deduct a point if any of the websites include job websites and consumer review websites like No Cowboys or Trade Me, because these generally are not particularly positive about your own organization. So, everyone had a go at pulling out a score. Anyone feeling courageous enough to put their score into the questions? If you scored more than 2, in my opinion, you're better than 95% of chartered accountants in Australasia. Very, very few firms at the moment are showing up well in this sort of search. So sit back and relax, because the rest of this presentation I'm going to show you the things that we can do that can impact your search in the future. Getting found, as we've discovered, is one of the principal reasons that people want better marketing. Here's a Google search that I did last week. I searched for accountant Manukau. Manukau is a suburb of Auckland. And have a look at what I've put on the right-hand side. It's just pasted straight out of my browser. The first one that shows up is actually an advert. Do you see that little yellow square that says ad? Helpwithtaxissues.co.nz is a business that has paid to be listed when anyone searches for the word accountant and the word Manukau together. Now the second listing, as you can see, is Finder, which is a directory. Then the third one, we've got an actual chartered accounting firm called Hudson Casper. And in fact, it's chosen to list a page which is about the members of staff. You can see it says / our people. Then we've got another firm, Slight Lala & Co. And then we've got another directory listing, the Localist, which has suggested that the adjacent suburb of Papatoetoe is also a relevant answer to the search that I put in. Then we've got the Yellow Pages from New Zealand. And lastly, we've got another chartered accountancy firm, Peter Harris, interestingly, through a Yellow Pages listing. So that just gives you a flavour as to the range of different searches and the answers that search engines can throw out when someone's looking to find an accountant in their local area. Now what I want to do now is to take a look at how you can design your website. The pictures, of course, are the visually engaging part of any website, and we all like to have a good looking page. But one of the most important things that you won't have been taught is how a machine reads the words on your website, because search engines, which is what we've just been playing with, are machines. They're robots, and they're designed to pick up and search through websites to give answers to people's questions. So how you design your website, it's really important to have a view as to how machines work as well as human beings. Take a look at this. This is a very clever bit of software called Open Alchemy. If you look at the bottom of my slide, I've actually put down the URL, alchemyapi.com. If you go to that URL and paste in the text off the home page of your website, it will analyze it as if it was a machine. Well, it is a machine. And what you can see here is a grid of grey, red and green boxes. And each of those boxes has got a keyword or a key phrase in it, which are taken from one of those Manukau accounting firms that I had found in the previous search. I just took the first 3 or 4 paragraphs of text off their homepage, pasted it into Open Alchemy, and this is what Open Alchemy is telling me. If you look on the left-hand side, it's got a menu list that starts with entities and then keywords is highlighted. You can tab through all of those, and it gives slightly different interpretations of your text. But this one is particularly informative for us. The words in the boxes are what the machine thinks your website is about. So if we look at the green ones, it talks about cost, objective, tax advice, friendly tax, objections, firm, business investment, tax planning, long-term view, professional business accounting. So these are all phrases that that firm has used to describe the service that they offer. I'm sure you're all familiar with them. They're coloured green because Open Alchemy sees these as having positive sentiment, of being good things in answer to that particular search query. The grey ones are neutral, and these include botany accountants, which is obviously their local area, East Auckland specialists, personal returns, income tax returns. And the red ones are negative. They have words like complications and, interestingly, accounting systems. Not quite sure why, but it gives you a flavour of what can happen when you actually go into a particular detail of your website and how a machine might read that material. Now have a look at this. Here's a list of all of those phrases that I was calling out just now. 3 columns. The second column says relevant, and it's got a number that's less than 1. This is how the machine interprets the search, which was botany, accountants, and its alignment with this particular website content. Tax gurus, the first keyword, has a 0.9 relevance, very, very aligned with what I was looking for. And on the right you can see it has a positive sentiment. And so it goes on. This might be a level of detail that you personally don't want to execute, but it's really important that you understand that this is how Google and other search engines work. They look at words that are strung together into phrases, usually, as you can see, 3 words or fewer. They align that relevance to each other, and of course, because you're in the industry, you totally understand that income tax returns can be very closely aligned with comprehensive business accounting. But don't forget, this is a machine who's reading this and sees these all in association with each other. And on the right, you can see that they've managed to go through 16 separate key phrases before they get to a single negative sentiment. And that's also important because, as our American cousins have shown us, if you go and search for accountant Auckland and then the word sucks or fail, that is the sort of information that some consumers look for. And obviously we want to be communicating positive things about your business. We don't want to be showing up for negative searches. Are there any questions about Alchemy? Right. Note that URL down, alchemyapi.com, and that's going to be a task that you'll do after the session's ended to appraise your own website, particularly the home page, but also some of the other principal pages. I should think I'd recommend your services and your partners' details, their profiles. Now let's look at the individual features that your website needs. It's obvious that a website generally starts as being a brochure for the firm. It's about explaining the firm, what you do, for whom, where you are, how to get in touch with you. That's taken as read. But the digital marketing features are different and they serve a different purpose. Their job is to help you get found. Remember our little chart earlier about getting found being one of the most important things your firm needs to be able to do. So the first thing that your website needs to have is strong copywriting. By that I mean people who can write clear, concise English that explains what you do, but also incorporates these keywords and key phrases that I've illustrated their importance to you. You can't just write in keywords. It's not English, and people don't understand it as that. So although you're writing your website for humans to read, we also know we've got to be able to enable machines to read it too. You also need to have accurate directory listings, whether that's the yellow pages, the white pages, or Hot Frog. You need to have strong and clear information in every single one of the ones that is relevant to your firm and its location. And if you haven't got that written down, put it down on your notepad now. Get someone to go and check every single place where they can find your firm listed, check that the information is correct, and if it's possible to do so, and you may have to pay to do this, include a website link and an email contact to a named member of staff. My personal bugbear, and this is an aside, is I loathe writing to people whose only email contact on their website is admin at whatever their firm is, or info at. Too often I get a reply that is an email bounce report that says that mailbox is full, or you don't get an answer. It's really, really important for your prospective customers to feel that they can get in touch with a named human being. So if, for example, they don't get an answer to their email in the time frame they expect, they can at least telephone and ask to speak to that person. So accurate directory listings are important because they're one of the signposts that come back to your website that enable people who don't yet know you to find you. Meta tags and image alt details are technical things which enable machines to better read the pictures on your website and the overriding purpose of your firm and its business. I don't need to go into detail now about what they are, but they need to be there, and they need to be well written, and they need to be associated with every single picture on the site and on every single page of your website. Your site also needs to have frequently updated content. Google in particular has very publicly talked about how it adapts and adjusts its search algorithm to produce what it considers to be relevant results. One of the things that it favors and is known to favor is websites where the information on it changes regularly. Now, for most of us, we don't change a lot of things about our firms. We don't hire lots of new people. We don't change the services that we offer to our clients. But there are pages in your website, for example, your news page, where you do have the capability to add new information on a frequent basis. And that is where Google will search to find more updated information. And the second part of this, as you can see, is unique URLs. A URL is the website address, and it'll be / and then some more words and numbers. The unique URLs are important because it enables Google or a search engine to direct the searcher to a very precise part of your website so that they can get the exact answer they want on one page. If you have a news page, for example, that just puts new articles on top of old ones, and the old ones drop down the page further and further out of sight, it's very difficult for the reader to go and actually find your information if it's not on a unique URL, if it's still on yourfirm.com.au /news, for example. You can't expect them to have the patience to scroll back through pages and pages of archive material. So adding those unique URLs is really important. It doesn't mean that they can't also display on a single page, but it is important to have the capability to have unique URLs. Your website also needs incoming links. Other websites and places where they say that they link back to your website. And some of these you'll be well known from, and others less so. Content aggregation services could include websites such as business2community.com. There are services like Outbrain, which can take your news content and syndicate it around the internet. And of course, your directory listings that we talked about earlier. That's why I said you need to have a website link in there so that it links back into your actual website, and Google and search engines will recognize that. And then the last thing you need is the inverse of number 5, outbound syndication and sharing. So not only do you need to signpost into your website, you then need to create content that can be shared going out. And this is something that is very new on the web. It's probably no more than a couple of years old as far as professional firms are concerned. RSS stands for really simple syndication and is a very small bit of computer code that enables the information on your website to be distributed free of charge. It's the way people update things like their Facebook pages. You can receive information that has come from somewhere else. Probably a lot of you get little alerts that say that so-and-so has done something on Facebook. That information comes to you through RSS, and it is really, really useful. We talked earlier about LinkedIn. You can send information from your website to your personal or firm's LinkedIn page automatically. And automating these syndication services is one of the key things that every firm should be doing with their website. Now, what I'm going to show you now is a wish list. If you think any of those 6 things aren't up to date or complete on your website, please write them down now on your notepad. Now, some of these are things that your firm can do yourselves. You don't need to work with people like me or like Will and the CCH team. But other things, in the same way that you and your clients outsource bookkeeping to people who are bookkeepers, or outsource accounting services to firms who are accountants, other things it's worthwhile outsourcing to experts rather than trying to learn how to do it yourself. It's just a better use of your time. And so these are the things that we think we should be doing. I've called them us. And there are 2 that I think that you could be doing. So the things you can be doing are the accurate directory listings. Just get someone in your office to go and do that search and get in touch with every single one of those directories and make sure that your listing's up to date and keep a central record of where you are listed. Secondly, the income links is something that you can control. I'm sure you write articles for newspapers. I'm sure that you are known and some of your partners get quoted, maybe on the radio, maybe locally. These are all things that you can work on, and you don't necessarily need marketing experts or computer website experts to help you with it. We can give you some guidance, but at the end of the day, these are things that you need to have done regularly by your internal team. So there's my recommendation in the short term of the things that your website actually needs. Now let's get on for some fun. Let's look at some actual websites and why I think they're good. Now, all of these websites have been built using the CCH iFirm website templates. Every single one of them looks completely different. But that's the front-end design. They're all running off the same back-end templated process, which Will has mentioned to you earlier. Hayes Girling Financial, I've just taken a screen grab here of part of their website, and here are the things that I think are particularly good about this website. I've circled with a red box 3 separate areas, different ways that their clients and prospects can get in touch with the firm. Firstly, they've got a secure client login, and I'm sure a lot of you have that, but it's really quite prominent, sitting there at the top of every single page. It's part of the header block, and you can get to that anywhere on their website. Secondly, in their menu, they have a pay your bill option. I think that's great. Some people like being able to pay their bills online. Others, I grant you, don't, but I think that's very innovative. And the last thing is the right-hand side, Contact Us. That's actually a tab. When you click on it, it pops out left into the screen and includes a contact form so that you can actually get in touch with the firm on the website rather than having to go to the Contact Us page and find an email or phone number. So, really nice use of contact and encouraging visitors to stay in touch. Now let's look at a completely different firm, Caroe Skilling. She's got a very strong brand, and by that I mean the graphic design around her logo, which is the C and the S in grey, the actual words of her firm, Caroe Skilling Limited, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Do you see how in the pink background bit at the top, she's got that in the top left, and then lower down the page, she's got it again, but in pink letters on a white background, but it's still the same font and still the same size. She's made everything look like it's come from the same design package. Even the menu has got the same font, and her phone number is really, really big. And I again think that this is an extremely good contact encouragement to anyone who visits the site. Now, of course, there's a lot more on the page that I've just put in this little screen grab, but I think using the branding and then being consistent throughout the whole design of the website is a really strong feature of this particular page. Now take Monte Carlo. This client, who I actually work with, have taken their blog, which you can see in the green font on the menu, and they've created an aggregation so that people can read a lot of different things all on the single page. So the first article you can see is called Student Loan Myths, and there they're talking about issues with student loans. Now that one article has obviously got its own unique URL, which I didn't display in this screen grab. But on the right hand side you can see two red blocks. One I've put around the words recent posts and the other around categories. Now the recent posts are the list of recent articles, and every single one of those is a unique URL that you can click on and open up as a separate web page, so that while you're reading about student loan myths, they're obviously hoping that you'll also think, ooh, there are changes to the donation tax credit claims situation. I'll go and read that at the same time. The second thing are the categories, because in just reading those posts, you know that they are not all about the same topics. And so if you are particularly interested in, for example, tax tips, Monte Carlo have made a category called just that. They've also got one about compliance, another about business, and several others. So that if there's a particular theme of article that piques your interest, you can quite easily then jump to only the articles that are covered off about tax. And the last thing they've done is to encourage the reader to keep up to date with the latest news with a subscription on the same form. So it's a header that appears on every single news article that you can browse through their website. It tells them exactly what they write about, and in fact we've set this up so that as a new article publishes, it automatically uses RSS to send it in an email form direct to your inbox. Now, Monte Carlo have split their blog post sharing, which is this subscription, with their client newsletter. So they're two separate entities. Clients get a client newsletter. People who are not yet clients, or used to be clients, only get the public blog content articles, because there is a different value that is offered in some of their marketing that only goes to paying customers. And I respect that. That actually isn't made clear here, but you could set your website up in very much the same way. The important thing here is the fact that the subscription is self-service. You only have to click that subscribe button. It goes to a contact form when you fill out your details. You don't have to have a member of staff taking people's individual information and manually adding it in. And then as a new article publishes, they are automatically mailed out. So automating some of your marketing activities is a really important part of digital tactics. Now let's have a look at Brown Baldwin. On the top left, you can see I've put 4 separate images here. Top left is actually their website, and that's what it looks like. And I've chosen a screen grab about their skill in transport and logistics. But this firm have chosen to make social media quite an important part of their brand building and getting their message out and getting found. So top right, what you can see is their YouTube channel. So they've got the obvious headshots of partners talking about their services and giving expert opinion. On the left, they've got something that came from their local news. And so that's a very, very nice way of taking video content and pulling it into a single place. But it's all very closely aligned with the firm. Bottom left is Google+. And again, it lists updates that possibly come automatically from their news blog, possibly not. And I've put a red square around YouTube as well, because Google also owns YouTube. And so it tries to encourage cross-linkages between the two platforms. They're both social media sites. And bottom right is Facebook, which I'm sure you're already familiar with. And you can see they've got a lovely line of 5 stars, which presumably they went out and asked people to give them, but they've got quite a nice following, lovely picture of the firm at the top, and they're keeping it up to date on a semi-regular basis. So these are other tools that you can use to get found, and which coincidentally also provide incoming links into your website. And these are areas that, again, I think the firm can get quite active on without having to incur huge cost. Here's another firm, SMC. And the thing I like about this is their simple strapline. They write, simplify, grow, profit. It's very clear what their underlying service is to their clients. Yes, of course, I'm sure they do tax advisory. Yes, I'm sure they do audit. And yes, I'm sure they submit claims to the IRD for GST and so on. But what they're looking at is getting me as a potential customer to engage with growing my business by letting them help me simplify things and obviously building profit. And I think that's a really powerful message in a crowded marketplace. And I don't know how many other firms there are in the same town as SMC, but I'm sure that you know for your own business how many other people there are who may be better or less well known than yourselves. I'm going to show you now a whole list of other things that your website could also do for you. Now, this is just designed to be a list of ideas that may be relevant, and of course it's not exhaustive. But we all know that showcasing your expertise is one of the best ways of selling an intangible such as a service. And having case studies or free advice guides, a bit like that Montek Carter article which is talking about student loans, that people can find you with. Interviews with the partners is also a really good way of showing off how good you are at what you do. They don't need to be long, and I know some people feel that they're a little camera shy, but to be honest, once you ask a straightforward question and get one of your colleagues to actually answer it, you'll find that they're very fluent in how they describe the issue and the solution. And that's the little bit that you need to take as a sound bite or a video bite and use in your marketing. The other thing you can do, of course, is interview your clients, particularly the ones who've been with the firm for years. They will be able to say in their own words why they like working with you. And those interviews can be written, they can be audio, or they could be video. I talked a little bit earlier about encouraging newsletter subscriptions. Virtually every firm has a newsletter, but I am regularly surprised by the number who say, look at our newsletter archive and what you get is a whole load of PDFs. There's no way of joining their newsletter except by sending an email to the firm with your contact details and then having someone at the firm manually add you to the list. Self-service is really, really important. And as I explained earlier, automating these things saves you time and money as a firm, because if I receive an email and I know I'm going to change my email address or I want to unsubscribe, isn't it better to let me do that myself rather than taking up your staff's time with these small administrative matters? I also don't like PDF newsletters. They are a little harder for search engines to read, for the machines to read, and a lot of email service providers block attachments. Even if they're legitimate attachments, it is well known that text that's embedded inside a newsletter, either as plain text or HTML, gets through spam filters better than attachments. Too many phishers and spammers out there have taken these techniques and used them for ill effect. The other thing about newsletters that I like is to reuse news articles for your newsletters. I hinted that that's what Montek Carter do. If you've invested the time to write a great article about a particular topic, why don't you use it more than once? In fact, my firm has a mantra that we write once and use it 3 times. So taking articles that are already on your news page and putting them into a newsletter hopefully gets them a wider readership. Some people, yes, may have seen it once before, but think about your own browsing history and habits. When you are reading a newspaper online, what do you do when you see an article on a subject that doesn't interest you? You just skip over it. And that's exactly what your clients will do if they've already read that article. You do not need to worry about that. It's a skill we've all developed, and people won't hold it against you that they've already seen that once. The last thing I put down for websites that they can do for you is event sign-ups. I think it's really nice, again, to allow self-service so that people can share a unique URL and get access to something that's special. Now, I grant you may not want everybody coming to your Christmas party, but if you run seminars or webinars where you have perhaps a client as a speaker, and I want to bring someone with me, isn't it easier for me to be able to send them the URL and say, sign yourself up? And then they can, and you might get a new contact who has the potential to become a client in the future. So I hope that page has given you some ideas of things that you can do with your website. Just going to pause and ask Will if there are any questions coming through.
Yep, we've just had one through about a newsletter service, whether there's any providers out there that provide newsletters for you to upload to your website and to send out to your clients. I'm aware of, in New Zealand, CCH Business Fitness does provide this service. Are you aware of any others, Rebecca?
No, not specific to accountants. So you're talking about people who have pre-written articles. That's the only one that I'm aware of. I would, however, sound a note of caution that you don't want to have too much that people can find in other places. It is important for your firm to have their own voice, and I would just say if you can afford it, it's better to write your own stuff or to find a writer who can write for you rather than to always and only buy articles that may be being used by other firms.
Another supplier has come through for Australia, Practice Paradox, so that's another option.
Oh yes, I know those guys actually. I beg your pardon, I've met them. Yes, I do know them. So yes, do go and research them. Well worth asking them things about what sort of articles they can write and how you might use them. Now let's move on to measurement and analysis. Now, you guys all ought to be numbers people. Measurement for me is the best bit of doing marketing because it absolutely proves that what we're doing has an impact. And this is two little screen grabs I've taken from Google Analytics, which is a free analysis software program that you can have embedded on your website. Quick poll, what do you think's happening in the graph at the top? As you can see, the little blue line hovers along, going up and down day by day from August the 29th through to about September the 18th. And on September the 19th, something happens. Write it into the questions if you think you know what happened. So what you're seeing on the left-hand side is sessions. This is the number of unique visitors who have come to this particular website per day. And each blob is the highest number for the day. I'll tell you for free that the low points in the graph represent weekends. So particularly for business websites, not many of them get visitors over the weekend.
So we've had a couple of answers come through. A newsletter's been sent, a survey's been conducted, website content has changed.
Absolutely. My knowledge, certain knowledge, is that it was the newsletter. So you send out a newsletter and you get an instant response of a high number of visitors because people actually do respond to the information that you send them. And if you look at the bottom, there's a nice pie chart in blue and green. Green are the returning visitors, so people who have had a cookie stored on their machine so that the website can recognize that they've been there before. And the blue ones are new. And as a marketer, I just delight in a large blue slice of the pie because that tells me these people have the potential to return, firstly, and secondly, to become clients of the firm. I'll just run through some of the other numbers on the left-hand side. 394 was the total number of unique sessions that happened during this time, and 334 were the separate number of people, so obviously some of them came more than once. 2.65 is the average number of pages that people looked at, and I'd say that's an okay number for a professional firm, particularly as there aren't very many different pages in an accountant's website. They came and spent at least 2 minutes on the site on average, and the bounce rate is quite high. Now, a bounce rate is the number of people who only looked at one page, and you want to encourage people as far as possible to look at more than just the one article that they got sent to. So that's a quick highlight of analytics for a website. But here are some of the things that I think you could be measuring. Each month, build a spreadsheet and record the big numbers. How many people come each month and how many of them are unique? Is there a particular day, and what are the numbers that come on that peak day? Total number of pages always looks fabulous because it's a really big number, but it's a very good measure of how well your website is getting used. We've just talked about the bounce rate, and I also think the percentage of new visitors is a very useful measure because it tells you whether or not your marketing messages are getting out beyond the people who already know the firm. And getting known was one of the things you told me you wanted to happen for your website. This top referring site is about incoming links from somewhere else. So where are the places that people are finding out about you? Where other places they're coming from? What are the keywords they've searched for? The most popular one and others. And here you'll probably find initially that they'll show up the name of the firm or the name of key people in the firm. But as you get better at your marketing and better known, increasingly you'll get found for things like accountant, your town, and so on. What are the things you've written that resonated, that people found most interesting? Because that gives you a really good guide as to the sort of articles you might want to write or commission to get written in the future. The number of page views per page and the number of contact form submissions. This is really, really important. People do use the contact forms to get in touch with the firm. How many happened each month? And then what were they? And again, how many people are subscribed to your newsletter? So you can see if these things are going up or going down. And now as I get towards the end of the talk, I'd like to give you a suggested list of things that you can do today that will give you the beginnings of a task list of what to improve for your own website. Go and do that search that we talked about earlier. Look for the firm name, look for it by geography, look for it by specialism. So, if you're a tax specialist, a retail specialist, put that in. As I said, don't feel too bad about what the results are. They are a baseline. Put them onto the spreadsheet. Check those directory listings. Make sure they've got incoming links. And even if you have to pay a bit, please put in your URL. Have a bit of fun with the Alchemy API. We know that it's going to be worth it. Look at your own Google Analytics and get a log into it if you haven't got one, or get it installed if you haven't. It is a really, really useful tool. Now, of course, it only records from the first day you've installed it on your website, but if you have got it installed, go back and build up a spreadsheet for the past 6 months. You can just change the dates on the top right of the page and go and have a look at what your analytics were like each month for the recent past. Then summarize those 6 things into a short report and share it with the decision makers in your business, the managers, the business owners, the partners, and actually tell them, in your view, how well or how badly you think you're doing. It's often the case that senior decision makers are not interested in change, and as an industry, accountants are notoriously allergic to change. Now that comes as no surprise to you, but in writing your report, be very firm and clear about what you perceive needs to change and why. And now we get to the interesting bit. Will, would you like to run through this offer?
Yep, thanks Rebecca. Just if watching today's webinar has inspired you to get your website up and running, CCH iFirm does have a range of website packages available. We'll have more details on these in the follow-up email, and we do have some options that can get you up and running with no upfront fees. If you already have a website with us, we have recently released a range of responsive design options, which is a new design trend that is emerging on the internet, and we'd love to discuss these with you.
Great stuff. And Creative Agency Secrets has also got an offer for you. The first thing is a URL. If you want the slides that I ran through today, you might want to use those for your internal report, go to this website address. Not only can you download the slides, I've put them up in SlideShare, so if you follow me on SlideShare, you'll be able to see all the slides that I do across a range of different marketing actions. Secondly, we've got a free spreadsheet for your Google Analytics. It's a template, but it lists out the principal things that I advised you to measure, so that as you go and review your past 6 months' activity, you've got something that you can instantly populate. And now my offer to each of you. Thank you for investing your time in listening to me and Will today. And I'd like to offer you the chance of having an individual consultation over the phone to run through the things that are important for you and your firm. I'll answer your questions. I will help you write a brief for your web designer so that you can improve your website along the lines of the things we've talked about today. And I'll also help you identify what I consider to be the top 3 priorities for your website and your digital strategy based on our discussion. And that's something that you need to put in your report that goes to the partners. Furthermore, if you're not satisfied, I guarantee to refund your money in its entirety. That's a different URL. You go there and then you click on the icon and you can reserve yourself a phone consultation. And lastly, thank you. I really, really appreciate the time you've taken, and I would like to extend an invitation to connect with me on LinkedIn. I like LinkedIn and I try to use it professionally. It is a particular thing that I encourage accountants to do and marketers to do, and I'd like to grow my own personal network. As you can tell from my accent, I'm not from Australia or New Zealand, although my grandmother was born in Adelaide, and so my network needs boosting in this part of the world. So I would be very grateful if you would do me the favour of inviting me to connect with you. And when you do send that invitation, please say that we met, although obviously not face-to-face, through CCH iFirm. Just search for my name on LinkedIn and you'll find me. Luckily, with an unusual surname, I'm quite easy to pin down. Now, Will, have we got any questions from the audience?
Yep, we've had a few come through around Google Analytics and how you get access to this tool.
So, Google Analytics is a small bit of code that is embedded into your website by your web designer. You need to first ask the people who run your website, is Google Analytics installed? And they will know how to get it. It's a free download from Google and they'll get it for you. Once it's been installed, you go to a URL which is analytics.google.com and you log in there with an email address and a password which you'll set up in the normal way. And then the person who has set up the analytics account for the firm can then invite different individuals to view the account. So you don't need to have a single login that everybody shares, because obviously that's not very secure. What you'll do is you can then send an email invitation and it'll say, Rebecca has invited you to view the Google Analytics for this website, and you receive an email, click on a link, and it then authenticates you as an approved person, and then you can go in and look at it yourself at any time.
And for those of you who have websites through CCH iFirm, we set this up and you should have a dashboard when you log straight into Web Manager, which provides you with these statistics. Another question that we've had, Rebecca, is around Google Business and Placemat listings, how to displace businesses that are still listed on there that may have gone out of business or no longer exist?
How to delist them, email me separately and I'll tell you. But what you're basically talking about is when you search for a firm and you actually see a map show up in the Google search, it's a really, really good way of ensuring that Google is taking a good look at your website and identifying where you are. So the way it works to set it up is you register your firm and then Google actually sends you a postcard to your physical address with a unique code on it so that they check that someone at least at that address has received the mail, and after that it will then put one of those little red pin identifiers onto the street map that shows where your firm is. But for that person who has a specific delisting inquiry, drop me an email and we'll talk offline.
Alright, that's us to the end of our time. Thank you very much for everyone that's attended. Thank you, Rebecca, for your presentation today. The webinar recording and the slides will be included in the follow-up email, and there will also be details about those offers that were listed in the webinar today. Thank you very much for your time and have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye.